We are talking tonight about Rivka, the matriarch Rivka. A lot of things to try to understand about her. I mean, there's certain aspects of her life that I want to try to understand. First, how she's chosen to be the wife of Yitzchak, right? This is the famous thing where Eliezer, the slave of Abraham, the servant of Abraham, goes and he makes a sign. He goes to the well and he says, "I'm going to now, God, I want a sign from you. The women are coming out to draw water. I'm going to ask one of the women to tilt her cup and give me a sip of water. And the one who says, I'll give you to drink and your camels to drink, that's the one. It's a sign that she is for Isaac." And he makes a sign, and she does it, and then he goes, now it's been proven this is the one for Isaac. Okay, it's very nice, it's a cute sign, it's very nice, but why does that prove so much that she's the right one for Isaac? What's the deeper meaning of that? Well, we're going to see that. I want to see that. I also want to talk about the whole thing about the blessings, because she's kind of flying solo there. Yitzchak wants to give the blessings to Esav. She doesn't go to him and say, hey, it's the wrong thing to do. She doesn't tell him that. She just comes along and just goes around him. Right? She tells Yaakov, listen, this is what's going to happen, and you go and steal the blessings. Well, why didn't you talk it over? Why didn't you tell Yitzchak what was going on? Why didn't you confront him? Why didn't you speak about him? And someone even mentioned in Shabbos, and someone mentioned in Shabbos last week that it seems she has no love lost for Esav. It's not so crazy about her own son. And I tried to explain, no, she did love Esav, and I proved it from a text where she's afraid, she knows prophetically that Yaakov and Esav are going to die on the same day. And she tells Yaakov, run away, because why should I lose both of you the same day? She was afraid Esav would kill Yaakov, and she had a prophecy that the day that Yaakov dies, the day that Yaakov dies, Esav will die too, which was what happened in the end. In the end, what happened was when Yaakov died, they went to bury him in the cave of the patriarchs. And when they went to bury him, so Esav came and said, hey, what are you doing in my cave? I got the rights here, not you. And Esav held up the burial of Yaakov. And it was stalled. And everyone's there. Yosef, the king of Egypt, was there. And all the people were there. The Egyptian entourage was there. The tribes were there. And it's all held up because Esav. And what happened was there was a son of Dan called Hushim. He was deaf, and he didn't know what was going on. He says, who's messing up my grandfather's funeral? And he went and he chopped Esav's head off, and his head fell into the cave of the patriarchs. So his head gets buried there. But you see that they did die on the same day. So Rivka was afraid that if Esav kills Yaakov, then Yaakov will kill Esav and she'll lose both of them. So she had motherly love to Esav too. But it doesn't seem she's too cuddly with Esav. She's got a problem with Esav, it seems, and we'll talk about that today also. So those are something I want to talk about with Rivka. Again, I want to understand why she was chosen through this thing about the water to be the wife for Yitzchak. What does that mean? Why did she fly solo in the blessings and not consult with Yitzchak? Why did she kind of trick Yitzchak? She really orchestrated this whole way for Yaakov to trick Yitzchak. Yaakov really didn't want to do it. He actually tried to get out of it. He said, I don't want to do this. And she said, you got to do it. And she pushes him. He doesn't want to do it. Yaakov is the straight shooter. He can't trick anyone. He says, the verse says, Ulai, perhaps my father will feel my skin and see I'm a liar. And he didn't say perhaps, he said, Halavai, I wish he would test me before and catch me so I wouldn't have to lie. He really didn't want to do it. She pushes him. Why does she push him so much? And why does she take a different route? And the last thing that I want to discuss is a little bit her feelings towards Esav. Okay, that's the things I kind of want to get into, understand, and a few more things about Rivka. But to start that, we got to sort of go back to the beginning of time, the very beginning, okay, to Adam and Eve, okay, to the formation of Eve from Adam. Now, there is a teaching that says, and it's well misunderstood, people always quote this wrong. It says that when God created Eve, and created Eve, So Adam said, oh, this time it's the right time. This one is from my flesh and from my bone. This is the right one. What do you mean this time? Sounds like he had other experiences. So there are those that misunderstand Rashi, and they read the following in the Rashi. They read it that it says that Adam had relations with all the animals. He tried them all out. The bear, too hairy, not my type. Lion, a little bit too wild, not my type either. He went and he kind of went through the animals, and each one was not right. And then Chava is, oh, this is the right one. Chas v'shalom, God forbid, that's insanity. It's not what it means. And I know a person who teaches this, because Rashi says it, but people misunderstand it. I know someone told me, one guy was proud of me, told me, I teach this, I teach in a Jewish elementary school, and I'm not afraid to say it as it is. I tell the kids, but that's not what it means. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean that. What does it mean? So the commentaries explain what it means is that Adam looked at each creation, he studied who they were, and he realized, he knew right away that they were not his match. They were just, every animal is one unique aspect, okay? As I was telling you before, a turtle has a shell, and a bull has horns, but only a human being can make a sword and a shield. It means that every animal has one aspect that's what they are. That's all they are. The human being is a completely different entity. We could be whatever we want to be. We have potential to do everything. So Adam understood every animal. He looked into their nature, and he said, I don't have a soulmate. Nothing in this world is equal to me. Everything is just a particular. And I am a klal. I am a general whole piece of this world. I combine everything, and I have no match. Eve is formed, and he says, this is my match. This is my match. Now, literally it's his match. Because it says, God says, I will make for him an ezer kenegdo. A very bizarre term. An ezer means a helpmate. Kenegdo means against him. That is the weirdest statement. God says to Adam, don't worry, I have a wife, I have somebody for you. I'm going to make you a helpmate against you. Huh? Oxymoron. What does that mean? It's a very strange. So if you want to fudge the term, you could say a helpmate that parallels him. That's his equal. It's a parallel. It's true. And that's what Adam saw he lacked with the other animals. They were just particulars. She's kenegdo. She's literally, on his level. She's also includes. But the word that it chooses is against. I'm going to explain why the word against. And also, the term it says is an ezer, a helper. Now, that could be insulting, right? A woman says, what am I, a helper? Oh, what am I? That's all I am. I'm a hired hand here? What does that mean? And yet the woman is called the ezer kenegdo. Let's try to understand what this means. So, the term helpmate that opposes, so to speak, Rashi tells us right away that a man should know that his wife will be one of two things based on how the man lives his life. If he lives properly, his wife will be the most amazing helper and move him in the greatest way. But if he doesn't, she will be against him. He's gonna be able to direct his whole life and figure out where he's at based on how his wife acts. It's really, if he's not acting right, the pressure he's gonna get, the pushback he's gonna get is gonna be because you're not acting so good. And if you were acting really right, your wife would be on your side. But when she's not on your side, she becomes the contrary force, the mirror. She kind of puts a mirror in the guy's face and says, hey, this is where you're at. Clean up your room. You're a slob. As he gets. So he gets now the kenegdo aspect. So you can get one of two things. You can get the helper aspect, or you can get the conflict aspect, which is the mirror showing you where you're lacking. And Rashi already puts that for all men have to know that they have to make sure they get their act together, because how their wives are going to respond to the way they act is going to be a crucial part of how it's going to show. It's going to be the telltale, it's going to be the litmus test of how they're acting in their spiritual growth, you know? And you see that. I mean, I tell people a lot of times, you'll see certain times the wife will be, sort of nagging him about something. Well, maybe there's a reason why she's nagging him about something. Okay, there's something going on. And, there's certain things, like, I sometimes tell guys, I say, listen, it's not so relevant in America, but in Israel very often it is, where people a lot of times learn, and, they learn in a kollel, so maybe they'll learn at home. If they learn at home, it doesn't go as well. If it's anything they work at home, it doesn't go as well, because the wife starts to see, hey, wait a minute, you're futzing around. I thought you were doing something. I'm willing to make some sacrifices when you're doing stuff, but you're on coffee break now. You're coffee break later. She becomes this connect, though, this force that parallels him, saying, wait a minute, I'm willing to do everything to help you, but you're not growing. You're stagnating. And then it's like, hey, get your act together, buddy. So it's this double force that you could merit, or if you don't merit, you're going to get. And that's very crucial to understand, okay? Because it's a certain power that is built into the system of man-woman relationship, husband and wife. And I want to explain a little bit deeper. But Rashi tells us you either merit it, it's going to be the help, or if you don't merit it, if you're not on the right track, it's going to be the mirror in your face showing you where you're going wrong. Okay? It's going to be against you. Questions, comments, thoughts on what I said so far? Kind of makes sense? Sort of makes sense? Yes, sort of makes sense? Okay. Now, let's understand this more deeply. We said a helper. A helper is a very derogatory term today. Just a helper? So let's try to explain.
A partner.
Yeah, but I want to try to explain what this means here. First, let's just try to understand. Let's redefine. The English term is not good. Azer is a much better term. Because let's talk about the helping professions. The doctors, okay? The medical professions, all helping professions. The social workers, the psychologists. These are helpers, right? Because they're helping professions. They're professions that bring out certain qualities. They're not viewed as lower on the totem pole. That's the quality. The quality is the ability to bring out certain latent powers or certain healing and bring that into the world. You have to understand this. The word in Hebrew for female, the word nekeva, okay, the deeper meaning of the term is in last week's parsha. And last week's parsha, Lavan says to Yaakov, he says, Nekov alai scharcha. Express to me what you think you should be getting as payment. The term he uses, nekov, is the word nekeva. The same root as the word for female is the word to express. Why? Because one of the qualities of the female dimension is the ability to bring expression into the world. That's what the woman does. Now, we need to have a short class on biology. How does that work? Look, very simple. When a child is formed, what happens? The man gives the sperm, and then he's gone. I don't know where he is. I don't know. He could be in TV. He's gone. He's irrelevant, basically, at that point, essentially. What happens? The woman takes the zera, she takes the sperm, and she builds it. She builds the child. It's the quality of taking potentiality and bringing it into the world. It becomes the ability to cause things to be expressed in the world. That's why the verse says, Chachmas nashim ban sabayis. The verse in Proverbs says, the wisdom of the woman builds the house. She could take the spirituality, which may be floating around in potential, and has the ability to express it into the house. Without the house having that, you're not bringing it into the world. There's nothing in the world. So the man could have the quality of certain potential, certain concepts, certain ideas. They're all over the place, right? Literally. And by the way, that's the same thing in not only in the emotional world where the men have these potentials, but they're all over the place, and the woman can ground it and bring it into the physical world. That's in the biological level also. That's why the man, there's millions of sperm cells, but she picks one. Is she so picky? Yeah, she picks one. Pick this one. This one we could develop. This quality we can bring and express into the world. That is the helper quality here. It's the ability to cause expression, to take the potentiality, find it, and express it in the world. That's the Azer, that's the helpmate aspect. It's not a helpmate in the negative sense. It's the helpmate as in the helping professions of having a quality of expression in the world that the woman can create. Okay? Questions, comments, thoughts on that? Kind of make sense? Yeah? Make sense? Now, but here comes a really important part. So, I explained to you before that if the man doesn't earn it, so she becomes sometimes his mirror that confronts him. But there's another aspect to this. Part of, in a more pleasant way, kind of the way she expresses that is by being the flip side of the man. Okay? They're in a relationship, and she, in a certain sense, becomes the, matter, antimatter. She becomes the positive and the negative. She becomes the male-female dimension. She becomes another aspect that's not the same. And it's completely different. And that is the power that gives the potential to be expressed. Okay? Which means, and this is an amazing thing, I want you to understand this. The Maharal explains an amazing idea. He says this is why the only true love would exist among opposites, male and female. Because what happens is that the unit becomes when we're two different poles, but we then unite in a greater whole. We can become two parts of a half when we're different. We have to be different. To become two parts of a half, if you're the same, then you're one part of the same thing. But the male-female dimension means that they are two different components, completely different. I don't know, Mars and Venus, whatever analogy you want. I think that book's already old, but you know. So, but what happens is there's two different components. They are not the same by the fact that they are connected. They are flip side of each other. Then they get together as one whole. The two halves, which are different, which are poles, then come combined in one greater, and you could become two halves of a whole when you're different. When you're the same, you're not anything greater than yourself. So the male-female thing is that the connecto, the parallel part, the part that opposes, that is that really is the counterweight, the opposite, that's got to be combined as one unit to bring out the potential. It has to be different. Now, it has to be different because men and women are different. They're very different. But it also means sometimes in a relationship, the qualities that they each have do not need to be the same. They may have certain skills that are actually almost opposite to each other. Now, again, I don't mean that a person should look for a husband or a wife when they have completely different cultures. The closer the culture is, the better. You have similar terminology, similar background, similar but when you come down to it, there's going to be a place, even if it's just the male-female, there's going to be a place where you're actually almost opposites, and you then combine as one greater whole. That's the way it's to say, what is peace? You know what peace? Peace is not going and having two things that are the same get along. It's having two things that seem to be opposite and they become unified in a greater whole. That's what we say. We say, Ose Shalom B'Roimav, God makes peace in the heavens. Who is Shemalein? Who'll make peace on us? What's the heavens? How do you say heaven in Hebrew? Shemayim. What's Shemayim? Shemayim is a conjugation of two words. Eish, fire, and Mayim. The heavens are made by combining fire and water, two opposite things. And the sages tell us that the angel of fire, Gabriel, is united with the angel Michael, the angel of water, and they're combined in this way. The two opposites, one of kindness, the water, and one of power. Gabriel means Gever, means strength, Gibor. So those two things that are apparently opposite, water, kindness, lovinghood. And that is the opposite then, that's power, strength, fire. Those things combine to a greater whole. The Eish and Mayim, the fire and water, make Shamayim. That's what it is. That's why it's called Shamayim, because it's a combination of Eish and Mayim. It's Gabriel Michael uniting in the higher realms. And what it means is God makes peace in the heavens, He'll make peace on us. Meaning that God takes the two things that look to be opposite, fire and water, Gabriel, Michael, and He combines them into a greater whole. He'll make peace on us. When we have people we think are completely different, we can't agree with them, they make no sense. He's going to help us to see a greater whole where the two things that don't seem to be one are really one of a greater whole. They become one. Okay? That's true peace. That's true unity. Okay? Okay? So, very often, the whole bridge of male-female is nurtured by the fact that you have to cross this bridge of difference. That's what nurtures it. If you're the same, then you'd be given to yourself. That's nothing new. The whole thing is that it is different. There's a different way to see the world. You got to cross a bridge between the male-female dimension. And very often, therefore, the qualities that one has in a certain sense are the complement and the opposite. It doesn't mean you have to be socially and culturally from a different background, but what's going to happen from soulmates what's going to happen is there's a certain place where the complementariness of the qualities is going to be because they are different, and there's a wholeness you're going to get by combining and learning from each other and assisting one another to bring out that quality. Okay, that's my introduction to this whole thing on the male-female relations. So, questions, comments, thought. Kind of makes sense? What it makes sense? Yeah? Yes, no, maybe? Yeah? Okay, now with that, we can understand the whole story of Rivka. Now we introduce Rivka. Okay, why? Because we know that the forefathers had different qualities. Let's talk about the forefathers before we speak about the mothers right now. We know Abraham was the person of kindness. That's how he functioned. How did he get the whole world to get into Torah? Just by kindness. He opened his doors on four sides. His tent was open. He gave people. He gave. That was his whole thing. His whole life was, hey, love God because look how great this is. He's giving. And he turned people on. People were like, wow, it's amazing. Everyone followed him. This is incredible. And that's why all of Abraham's tests, all of his 10 tests, are to get him to say no when he needs to say no. Because Abraham, by his nature, is a chesed person. He's water, he's kindness, he's giving, he's flowing. So God says, okay, you got it. Now I'm telling you to kick out your son Yishmael. Huh? Now go leave your old father and go to Israel. What? Okay, now take your son and offer him as an offering. Really? That's what's going on. Everything is to get Abraham to make sure that when he is the giver, he's the giver in the right way. He has a balance to him. Because if you give without balance, here's $100, man. Go buy some heroin. I see you're down and out, You got some money. Yeah, go ahead. That's not kindness. That's terrible. Kindness means that I'm going to give you in a way that you can receive it. If I give you in a way that you can't receive it, then I harm you. It's like I don't know how to say no. So Avram was the giver. But what happened was, if his son Yitzchak would have taken the same path, the world would have blown up. The world could not have handled it. It would have been a world where there would be no such thing as the word no. It was kind of like it was the 60s, but like out of control. There's no love the one you with. There's no rules there. Not because Avram was holy. He kept it. But if there would be no limits, that people would never. There would be no in the world. then the world would have blown up. Yishmael had the problem that Abraham was too kind with him. He didn't teach him no as much. So comes along Yitzchak, Isaac, and takes a different approach. His approach now is self-control, restraint, which is why you almost hear nothing about Isaac. Why do you almost nothing about him? Because how are you going to explain a person being introspective? You know? And Isaac sat and really thought about himself a lot. And then he went here and he really thought about himself even more. And he really perfected his deeds. Avram is out there going, meeting people. Yitzchak is the introvert. He's mastering himself through self-control, through gevura. And at the end, what he does is he has to go and he has to, at the end, but when his the test that he passed in his 37 is the offering of to be offered up on the altar for Hashem. That's also a complete aspect of nullification. I'm not here. I solely control myself so much. Okay? That's what he does. He has to control himself. Eventually it's going to lead him, eventually his introspection is going to lead to becoming a giver. Because they always lead to it. You see, if I want to be a nice person, I want to be a giver. And I really come from that angle. So I say to myself, I got to be a giver. I ask myself, what's the best way to give that's going to be good for people? And be right. And then I'll learn, if I come from that angle, I'll learn and I'll say, well, to give to this person now is harmful to them. The answer is no. And people pleasers can't say no. But when they can't say no, it's not about giving anymore. When a people pleaser can't say no, it's about they want people to like them. It doesn't come from the pure place of giving anymore. If it's from your pure place of giving, you have to be able to go and say, this won't be giving if I do it in this way. I got to say no. Now, if you come from the place of self-restraint, where introspection, you could also become a giver and become perfectly balanced. How do you do that? You say to yourself, okay, I want to do the right thing. I'm going to ask myself, okay, how do I do the right thing? I'm not going to say a word I shouldn't say. And then at a certain point you say, well, to be really perfect, I got to start giving. I'm not giving enough. I got to give. So you'll become the extrovert, the giver, but through the process of being the introvert, the one who's self-reflective. That's really Yitzchak. Yitzchak, he eventually becomes whole. He becomes whole, but from the angle, from the perspective of, I can't do the wrong thing. What am I doing wrong? Let me get myself together. Oh, so get myself together, part of that is to be a giver. Okay, what do I got to do? I'll do it. He gets there. And Yaakov is the balance. It's called Torah because he's the perfect balance. He's not too much of the giver, not too much of the self-restraint. He's perfectly balanced. He's harmony. It's why he's called Tiferet, which is beauty. Beauty is combining the two opposite things. Okay, that's Tiferet. He combines, which is also called Torah and truth. Because the Torah knows has a give now, don't give now. It's the perfect balance. That's Jacob. Which is why Jacob's kids all come out pure. Abraham, who's on the side of giving, his son Yishmael, is a giver, but he's an inappropriate giver. He gives when he shouldn't give. Okay? That's why the Talmud says one of his challenges in illicit relations because it's giving but not a controlled way. Esav, who is Isaac's son, Isaac was self-control. Esav is the same thing. He's control, but not self-control. It's controlling others. He's the master of war. He's the Western society. So that's who Yitzchak is. Now, based on what I told you earlier about the soulmates, complementing but by being different, by being almost opposite, now we understand a lot about Rivka, who Rivka was. Rivka is the epitome of kindness. That's what she really is. She is the match. She's the balance for Yitzchak. And that's the whole story when the slave of the servant Abraham comes to the well and he says, I want a sign for the right woman. What's the sign he makes? He says, I'm going to say, well, whatever woman comes and can tilt her cup and give me a sip, that's the one that's for and the woman says, no, I'll give you to drink and your camels to drink. That's the one that's for Yitzchak. You know why? Because that's the one that shows she masters the quality of chesed, of giving, the opposite of Yitzchak. So he goes and he says that, and she says, hey, I'm not going to just give you a tilt and give you a sip. I'm going to pour it in. I'm going to give you the whole thing to drink. And not only that, I'm going to give you camels to drink. See, a person that is a giving, kind person, a real chesed person, doesn't do what you ask them to do. They do more. They're not just trying to fulfill. If you're trying to fulfill your obligation, you may be a person that lives by the letter of the law. A person of kindness wants to do more. So you want a little sip? I'll give you the whole thing to drink, and I'll even give your camels to drink. Yeah, I didn't guess that. But that was his test. His litmus test was, is she going to be this person of tremendous kindness? If she is, that's the sign that she is the one who is the kenegdo, the opposing force, the balancing system for Yitzchak. She's on his level. She's going to be this tremendous chesed person. That's going to be the sign. So when he says it, and she comes out, and she does it, and he sees the way she does it, so he keeps saying, she quickly. Why is quickly? Because in life, when you do something that you don't want to do, you kind of like, okay, time to do my work. You don't do it. When you're into something, you do it fast. She wanted to do it. She was excited about doing it. That's who she was. So he's like, my gosh, this is the one. Hashem showed me the right one. And that's what it means. In the verse he says that you've proven that this is the one for Yitzchak. It's the complete Ezer Kenegdo. It's going to bring out Yitzchak's qualities by being his opposite, by being the person who's a tremendous kindness person. That's how they're going to get together and create this greater whole. Okay, questions, comments, thoughts, and so forth. Yep. I think I'm doing a monologue today. Sorry. Monologue today. Yeah. Okay. Kind of good? So far good? All right. So I'll keep going, and then you'll tell them we'll talk again. Okay. Fine. Now.
Are we on number 1 yet?
Yeah, we are. So, okay. So now, that is, and by the way, just as an aside, I mentioned it last week in Shul, or one of the classes on Shabbos, but it's a fantastic idea. It's said by the Mursi Techa, or Bolson. He says that the parsha where Rivka meets Yitzchak is read by the Sfardim when they have a Gnafruf. The Shabbat, they read that. They call it the Parsha of Zvugim. They call it the Parsha of Soulmates. Okay? And we learned it there, when Yitzchak is at the offering, she's born the day he's about to be offered. The moment he's about to be offered on the altar, she's born. And that's what happens. The text says that Avram starts saying, well, I should have married him off earlier. Like if I would have slaughtered, if he would have died, there'd be no Jewish people. And God says, don't worry. The soulmate's born at that moment. At a certain level, the Kabbalists say that Yitzchak reached a certain aspect of his soul he got during the Akedah, during the offering, which ignited the aspect of his soulmate to be brought into the world. But his soulmate's brought into the world at the moment of the Akedah, of the offering. That's when it's told to Avram. I was worried, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have waited so long. Don't worry. His soulmate, your brother's family has birth, and this is who they had a baby named Rivka. Oh. And I don't know if he puts it together then, because he sends Eliezer to the place of his house, but that's what the verse was telling us, that she was born at that moment, soulmate. So this is the parsha of soulmates that we read when Rivka actually comes to meet Yitzchak. It's very interesting, because it's in the parsha of Chayisar, which is very bizarre. It's in the parsha about the death of Sarah. Not only that, in Judaism, the law of getting married, how we get married, we learn it out from how Avram went and bought a burial plot. Very romantic. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre, because in reality, we do so many things at the wedding to keep it with a good sign. We sound like really like we go to the nth degree, you know. We get married outside, under the sky, and the day that there was blessings in the world, and the beginning of the month, it's a better time. We go through all of these things to have blessings. And then, where are we learning the marriage from? From buying a grave. Yeah, Mazel tov. What the heck is that? What's that about? So, the Mustatecha explains, he says, because really that is the ultimate place to learn it from. Because normally you would think that, you know, as the non-Jews say, till death do you part, as we don't believe in that stuff. That's not what it is. We believe that the soulmate is one unit, it's one soul, that was separated into this world, come into this world as male, female, and then they have to reunite. And then when they reunite, they are together forever. Means in death also. The ultimate place to show the purpose of the souls uniting, of the marriage, is not in life, it's when it goes beyond even. When the souls will be together forever, that they're one unit, that's the greatest place to learn marriage from, because it's a completely different view of marriage. If marriage is, okay, it's a convenience thing till death do you part and then die, that's not good. That's not what we say. We say that no, the souls are one soul, and they function as one soul after they're married, and they stay as one unit. So Rivka and Yitzchak's story is that story there. It's these two seemingly the different souls, the male soul, the female soul, they are from, one is kindness, one is judgment, and they put together to create the greater whole of who they are. That's what's happened. Okay? So now, based on this, when these souls get together, I got the other question that I really don't. But I want to say one other thing about Rivka, just as an aside. This is kind of an aside, but I want to point this out. If you notice afterwards, when Rivka was a little kid, when she was very young when this whole happened. She was very young. So what happens is her brother Lavan and her mother don't really want her to go. They really don't. They want to take whatever money they can, and they don't really want to send her away. They're not good people. And I want to give you the background, just to think about the story. The sages teach us that when Eliezer, the servant of Avram, came, and he does this test, and he says, wherever a woman gives me to drink, that's the one for Yitzchak. And it's her, and fine. And he says, now he goes back to the parents, because he's got to ask the parents, especially she's very young. So he goes to the parents, and he says, listen, here's the deal. I'm the servant of Avraham, okay? And Avraham, you've heard of Avraham, everyone knows Avraham. And he's giving everything to his son. Everything to his son. And you know, this is what happened. I got here today, I made this test, and this is the wife. What do you think? So they first say, Hashem mitzadavar, they're so religious, it's from God, it's a miracle. That's what they first say. But they don't really, they're not planning on that. They're just showing off. They say, yes, for sure. But then what happens is, the Medrash says that at that point, Betuel, the father of Rivka, tries to poison Eliezer. He wants to kill him. You know, in the good old days, that was one of the methods they used to do. They used to poison people. He's going to poison him and take whatever he's got. He's not getting anything. Once they take Rivka, he's not getting nothing. He gets to get the camels and all this stuff. They'll get a lot of stuff and clean him out. So he goes to poison him. So he puts poison in his food. And, you know, in the old days, that's why they had the tasters. They used to taste, because that was the good way to kill someone. So he slipped something in there, and Rivka, Monty, they switch it around. But what happens is, it says that a malach, an angel, came and mixed up the plates. He got a little confused how it got distributed, and ended up that the poisonous plate went to Betuel, the father. And he ate the poison, and he died that night. It's crazy. So you got to understand the picture now. It means Rivka, this little kid, living amongst these evil people. She knows they're evil. She's getting her ticket out. Right now, her father just died. In the morning, when they get up, and okay, it's sad, he died, and he tried to poison me, he messed up, okay, So Eliezer said, okay, let me take her and go. And they say, you know what, let us stay a little bit. Let us stay for, 10 months to get ready for the wedding, a year or something like that, and then she'll go. they're trying to stall, they're trying to change the whole deal. And Eliezer says, no, hey, don't do this to me. Hashem has made me succeed, let me go. So they don't know what to do because he's pressing them and they're trying to stall. So they say, you know what? Let's call the girl and we'll ask what she wants to do. And you know that there's good psychological family trips going on right there. They're not going to say, what's your opinion? Do you want to go after your father just dropped dead? Go ahead, go have a party. Mm-hmm. They're going to lay some good chips on it. This is not let's ask her opinion. So they're going to try to get her, they're going to try to lock her in. And they get Rivka, this nice girl, this girl who's a giving girl. She's young. And she says to them, not just, I'll go, she says, I'm going. I'm going whether you like it or not. I'm out of here. That's what she tells them. So this is very interesting to see Rivka, because I wanted to point that out to you, because she is the kind, giver, loving person. But she has an aspect of strength in her, which she's going to be the balance of Yitzchak. Yitzchak learns to be the person of strength and of self-restraint, but he learns to he's the kind person also. But he comes from strength. She's the opposite. She's naturally the giver, but she knows how to stand up. And she says, I'm leaving, whether you like it or not. I'm out of here. Okay? You see her strength. She's from Chesed, but she's strong. Now you're going to see it even later. Because the end, this is very bizarre, why she tells Yaakov to trick his father. Why didn't she just go and discuss it? Hey, come on, Yitzchak, be a nice guy. Don't give the bracha to Esav. She doesn't do any of that. So I wouldn't know how did she come off doing this? Why did she decide to do this? They don't have any idea why she decided to do this?
I read in a commentary one time that God specifically given her the prophecy about Yaakov and Esav, so she didn't feel like she was permitted necessarily to give it to her husband, and because she had the insight, then I guess she felt like she had to maneuver it in some way that wasn't direct.
Beautiful. That is the most, it's very accurate. That's what the commentaries say. But I want to explain to you the depth of this, because you got to understand what this means now. She gets the prophecy, Isaac doesn't, and she says, I'm not saying anything. And that's already a certain power. To know, I got to move this thing, I have to go and direct this thing. And that's why she calls Yaakov and says, listen, it's a very bizarre statement. She says, Yaakov says, hey, I don't want to do this. I make it cursed instead of blessed. And she goes, well, the curse is on her. You can't do that. What does that mean, curse is on her? What she was saying to us, don't worry, you're not going to get cursed. Because I've been prophetically told by God that you have to do this. Okay? Now, it's a little bit bizarre. I mean, you said great, but why didn't God tell Isaac?
Well, doesn't the Parsha say that Isaac was blind, and it was maybe part of his blindness that he didn't see Yaakov's goodness, and that's a...
So it's a good point, because obviously he didn't know to what degree Esav had sold out. Obviously, because he didn't realize. But as I pointed out during on Shabbos a few weeks ago, that he knew that Esav was a bad guy. That you could see from the text clearly. Because when Yaakov comes in, he says, first when Esav sends out, when Isaac, Yitzhak sends out Esav, he says, listen, go and catch something for me, hunt something for me, but you know what, sharpen your knife so you don't feed me non-kosher food. And you know what, go catch it so you don't steal it, okay? The verse learns that all these things. It says, sharpen your knife, and suitally catch me a catch, because he was worried. He knew what Esav would do. Yaakov comes in, and he says, Dad, come, I'm going to feed you. And he says, wait a minute, who's the guy talking so nice? That's not Esav. Who are you? Oh, how'd you make it so fast? Well, Hashem helped me find the animal quickly. Hashem! That's not Esav. Esav never says God. The whole time you know that Yitzchak realizes that Esav is not a good guy. But he feels he's not so bad. He hasn't sold out entirely, and he believes if he blesses him, that's going to help him. Maybe he'll get his act together. So he is blind in the sense of Esav fooled him, but he didn't fool him to the point where he didn't know who he was. He knew Yaakov was a tzaddik. He knew Esav wasn't a tzaddik. He just didn't know Esav was a Russia. He didn't know Esav was evil. He thought Esav was a problem child. Problem child, I'll be your problem child. The kid who's doing really great, you don't need to give him the curve the test, you know? Hey, Yaakov's getting 100, he's great, he's good. And according to Yitzhak's rationale of the world, is very important, rationale of the world, Yitzhak is the guy who's in judgment. He's about self-restraint. I don't want to help Yaakov. Yaakov should earn it himself. You do it, Yaakov. You could do it. Esav can't do it, he needs a little help. But in Yitzchak's mind, how should the world function? The world should function that the righteous people should earn it. That's Yaakov. Esav, I can't help it. He just doesn't. He's not cutting it. I got to help him out. So he's not totally blind, but God does conceal from him how bad Esav was. If he would have realized how far Esav had sold out, he wouldn't have tried to give him the blessing. Which is why at the end he says, the blessing should stay with Yaakov, because he realizes how bad Esav was. So my question is, why didn't God show him just how bad Esav was? Rivka knew it. She knew Esav sold out. But Yitzhak didn't. Get a point?
No, it just seems to me if Yitzchak is the voice of restraint and self-control, that in this situation he allowed his emotions to rule over his rational thinking, which would indicate that he actually in that moment didn't embody his essence.
Well, I would disagree because we said before he didn't know. Like he did go according to his logic. But his logic was faulty because he would miss something about Esav. Now, why did he miss it? Why did he miss it? Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe there's some part of the father to the son he missed. He missed it was his own son. He was hopeful. But
He was blind, but he was also,
was a
that could be a
prophet.
metaphor also in that he was blind in his son.
Yeah.
That's what Libby's saying. And there's a certain place that's true. But again, you got to remember, Yitzhak's a prophet. And so that's why Rivka says, wait a minute. If God's telling me, why did you tell him?
Because they're one unit and they should operate together.
So why didn't she discuss it with
Well,
him?
because the blessing that's given is the blessing that Jacob needs, because the blessing, he is using restraint when he gives it, because the blessing Yitzhak intends to give to Esau is for like material
Right.
wealth.
Right.
And that's not what Jacob needs, because he's already like a spiritual person.
Right.
So that's like the final step for him to be like, a greater synthesis than simply Abraham or
Right.
his father. But then when he gives the blessing, or he's about to give it, Yitzhak says, he's like trying to feel around, and he says it's the hands of Esau and the voice of Yaakov.
Right.
And that's how these two groups of people affected the world, right? Like Esau or Edom has affected the world
With
through actions, hands, and
Right.
then the Jews through
The voice.
the voice.
But let me explain this part, because we've discussed this before in some other ways, to flesh out what Elizabeth was saying. It's a very important principle. Yitzchak wants to give the blessings to Esav for two reasons. One is he knows he's not 100% righteous, he needs help, right? And the second one is because the blessings he's offering is the blessings of the physical world. And what happens is that Yitzchak believes that Esav and Yaakov can make a partnership. Just like we have Levi, the tribe of Levi, who sit and learn Torah, and the Jewish people that support them. He was hoping that Esav would be the financial support of Yaakov. Imagine the Roman Empire. Imagine if the Roman Empire were all Jewish. Oh my gosh. Imagine they were all righteous. Gosh. What a world. That's what Yitzhak thought. He thought that Esav, who ends up being Rome, if I can keep him in the loop here, and I can make him a partner with Yaakov, then what happens is that he'll take care of the physical world, the hands of Esav. And Yaakov will be the kol, the voice. He'll be the one saying, learning Torah and davening and doing other things. Esav is the working guy, and he's out in the fields, and he's fixing the world up, and he's doing a lot of stuff. Yaakov is cloistered in his spiritual pursuit. But they're partners. That's what he wanted. But that's why the blessings he first offers are the blessings of the physical world. That's why if you look at the text, it's very bizarre how the things work. Because what happens is, there's really three sets of blessings in the text, which is very strange. He first gives the blessing to this person that he thinks is Esav. It's really Yaakov. And then Esav comes and says, give me a blessing. He says, I have no more blessings for you. Wait a minute. So you thought that was Esav, and you left no blessings for Yaakov? Maybe you like Esav, but you didn't like Yaakov? You loved that. I knew Yaakov was. So when Esav comes in, and now he thought he just blessed Esav, Esav says, give me a blessing. I can't. I gave everything to your brother. I made you a servant to him. Everything you own, I can't get. What is he doing? So I mean, he was going to make Yaakov a servant to Esav? He was giving everything to Esav and selling Yaakov out? Bizarre. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards he goes and he says to him, please give me a bracha, And he says, okay, here's a blessing. And he says, he gives him the fat of the land, the fat of Rome. Well, where's the blessing a minute ago? You said you had no blessing. And he said, please give me a blessing. And then you said, oh, okay, you want a blessing? Okay, I got one right here in my sleeve. Here's a blessing. But where'd that come from? And the craziest part is that at the end of the parasha, when Yaakov is about to leave, he says, oh, and God will give you the blessing of Abraham and the land of Israel and the Jewish people. Bye. Where'd that come from? Why wasn't that on the table the whole time? That was the main blessing. The end of the parasha, when Yaakov's about to leave, he says, the blessing of the land of Israel and the Jewish people. Where was that the whole time? So here's it's very important to understand. Yitzchak wanted Esav to be a partner with Yaakov. Physical, take care of the physical world. Yaakov's involved in spirituality, and they're partners. And that's the way you want your blessings. See, good material things could be bad for a person. Okay? Right? Charles Lindbergh, who was very, very rich, it was bad for him. They ended up kidnapping his only child and killing them. That was money that was bad for a person. You want financial, material things that will help you to be spiritual. If they derail you, they're worse. And you don't want them. You may think you want them, but you don't. You actually want material things that's going to hook you into spiritual things. So what happens is, Yitzchak says, okay, here's the partnership. Yaakov's fine. He's going to learn Torah all day. You need the physical world, take care of the physical world. Because that's the partnership. Take care of it. He doesn't need anything. He's sitting and learning Torah, just support him, give him his basic food, and he's good. He doesn't need the wealth in it. He's not. That's no. So that's what he wants to do. He wants the partnership that Esav's going to have all of the physical things to connect to the spiritual. Yaakov's got the spiritual already. It can be a partnership. What happens is that Rivka realizes that Esav is so bad, he's not going to share this partnership here. He's not doing it. So she says, this can't be. We got Yaakov in there. When Yaakov gets the blessing now he's got both. That's really what Elizabeth was saying. He's got the hands of Esav and the voice of Yaakov. Our job now today is we can't just sit right now in the world and only have the learning. We have the tribe of Levi. We have the rest of the Jewish people. We have both jobs to do. We have one's called the job of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, fix up the world. And one's a tree of life, keep learning Torah. We have to do both. We're Esav and we're Yaakov now. Esav says, give me a blessing, connect me back. He says, I can't connect you back, you're disconnected. So he says, I don't want to be connected to holiness. Dad, you got me wrong. I want some bucks. I want a good steak. I want a hamburger. Oh, that's what you want? Okay, I can give you. That's the blessing he gives man. He doesn't give him a blessing to connect back. He gives him a blessing for wealth. You want money, it's some money, that's okay. Then at the end of the parasha, it's not even a blessing. At the end of the parasha, what Yitzhak is saying to Yaakov is, he's saying, listen, the truth is, I realize now that it's obvious you're the one who's going to be the extension of Abraham. I can't give the blessing of Israel and the Jewish nation. That's your free will to choose. I can give you a blessing for monetary things. I can't give you a blessing that you're the Jewish nation. But obviously you are. you'll get the land of Israel, because I see now, from the way the whole thing has evolved, that you're it. Esau's not even involved. So the main blessings, the spiritual blessings, at the end of the parsha, are then mentioned at the end, because they were never going to be given. They were just the reality of...
He was going to get that all along anyway.
Whoever earned it would earn it. Now he's just saying, then you got it. Yes, you got it. So that's the background to this. So we have to just answer, because it's getting late. What the answer is now is, why did Rivka not go? So, okay, so you said she didn't go because God had told her the prophecy, which now meant to her that I got it and I'm not going to give it over to if God didn't tell Isaac, guess I'm not going to tell him either. But the question then becomes, why did God not tell Yitzchak? Why did God only tell Rivka? The question gets further. Right? And with his question? I understand why Rivka didn't say it. Because whatever, she said, God told me, he didn't tell him, he doesn't know, okay. But why didn't God tell Yitzchak? God hide from Yitzchak and only tell Rivka?
Well, it gave them the opportunity, like you just illustrated, for them to demonstrate who was really the rightful.
Right,
Well,
okay.
It became obvious, and he got to go through the logic of seeing Yaakov become.
So there's some advantage of him going through the process himself other than being told. I agree, you know.
And would the children have listened to the father, and the mother was the one that would have influenced the children to approach the father to get the blessing?
If
You
what's
said,
again?
you said in the beginning that the mother was the one that was the nurturer,
Right.
and the one, the father is the sperm, and then he just disappears, right?
I didn't
So
call
the-
fathers just sperm.
Right.
Let's be
But
clear.
the
we're
mother,
recording.
the mother is the one that's the
Builds it,
nurturer
she builds
and
it,
builds
yeah.
it, right? So she's the one that's influencing the children. So if God was the one that told, God had to be the one to tell the mother, because she was the one that was going to influence the children to approach the father for the blessing.
Right, but you see, the problem was that Yitzchak in the beginning said to Esav, I want to give you the blessing. Some commentaries didn't say he whispered it to him. And that's why Rivka, when she knew, his whole thing was prophecy, because she didn't even hear it. Some people say that she got a prophecy that this is going to happen. So Yitzchak starts by telling Esav, hey buddy, come here. This is what I want to do. So I agree with you that she's building, and I agree with that. But this whole machination is only relevant because God hides it and won't let the prophet Yitzchak know the truth. So there's something that we're gaining out of this process, but what?
Well, he was about judgment, right? So he
Yeah.
would have acted on that. If he knew that Esau was really wicked, he would have been bound by his nature to act on some type of, maybe he would have separated him from the family, I don't know.
Right, but whatever he done, he would have done anyway, because he soon realized how bad he was. I mean,
So history couldn't have.
Would it have changed history? Okay.
I mean, I don't know, maybe it would have. Maybe it would have changed the dynamic, the family dynamic in such a way that all the other scenarios wouldn't have played out the way they needed to.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that in a few moments he's going to figure it out. When Asaph comes in for the blessing and he screams, the Talmud says he saw hell opened up underneath him. Gehenna opened up, and he said, oh my gosh, and he's like, he got it. That's when he said, Yaakov gets the blessings, because at that moment was the first time he really saw who Asaph was. The whole time he didn't see it, he only sees it now. So let me explain one thing, and you're all saying good, but let me just flesh one point out. Yitzchak, the blessings were a test for Yitzchak also. Yitzchak was the person of control, judgment, self-restraint. This was the greatest test he ever had in a certain sense. Why? Because what happened is that he believed in his whole life the blessings cannot go to the person who is qualified. He believed I can't help the guy who has to earn it himself. I only have to help the person who can't make it. But to go and to assist Yaakov, no, let him earn it. That was his philosophy. Yaakov's a tzaddik, he's righteous, he could earn it himself. And Esav is not. I'm not going to give Yaakov the blessing. I'm not going to do that. It's against my belief in the world. My belief is earn it like I did. Why should I help you out and give you whatever God gives is what He gives you? I'm not going to help you along. But what happened was, in the end, Yitzchak has the complete implosion of himself. He has to take his whole philosophy and say, wow, the world just moved and everything didn't play out the way I thought it. And that must be God's will. I'm going to eat it. He ends up having judgment on his judgment. He ends up imploding. He ends up saying, I'm so into what I do is right and control myself, I'm willing to nullify my entire philosophy now because God has moved this whole reality in such a way that I see Yaakov gets the blessing.